There is a giant target painted on the American heartland. And we're the ones who put it there. That target? It's made up of hundreds of intercontinental ballistic missiles, also called ICBMs. They're scattered in silos across Colorado, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, and Wyoming. Defense insiders call it the nuclear sponge. If a nation were to launch a nuclear attack against the United States, they would first aim to destroy our ICBMs in order to limit our ability to retaliate. And apparently, that's the point. That's our nuclear sponge strategy, allowing these 5 states to absorb hundreds of enemy missiles in the event of an attack, in order to deplete the enemy's arsenal. Earlier in the Cold War, ICBMs were the linchpin of our nuclear deterrence because they were essentially invulnerable in their silos. But as missiles grew increasingly accurate, the silos were no longer safe from enemy missiles. And when that happened, these silos, which are in well-known fixed locations, were suddenly tempting targets for a surprise disarming attack. But rather than get rid of them, the Pentagon came up with a new justification for keeping the ICBMs. They would serve as bait to draw the enemy's fire. Sacrifice 5 states in order to save the nation. But just like a sponge, there are a few holes in this plan. First, even a so-called limited attack on our ICBM force could still result in tens of millions of people dying in the initial attack. Then, in the days and months that followed, massive evacuations of survivors would cause an unprecedented refugee crisis in the unaffected regions of the country. At the same time, the strain of treating the millions of survivors suffering from burns and radiation sickness would most likely collapse our healthcare system. Finally, the impact of the fires and radioactive fallout would devastate U.S. agriculture, as the silos are located in the heart of the American breadbasket, where the majority of American wheat, corn, and animal products are produced. And that's just in the United States. An attack of this scale could generate enough atmospheric soot and smoke to lower global mean temperatures for up to a decade, leading to mass food shortages and widespread starvation around the world. All of this terrible devastation just to deplete our enemy's nuclear arsenal. And even after all that, they would still have hundreds of weapons left. Guess you could say the nuclear sponge sucks, just not in the way it's intended to. And yet right now, the Pentagon is doubling down on this dangerous strategy. Currently, the US government is planning to spend $100 billion to build a whole new fleet of ICBMs, estimated to cost taxpayers a total of $264 billion over their lifetime. That's more than 20 times what the US is spending to combat climate change. The fact is, we don't even need these dangerous money pit missiles. We have more than enough warheads in our subs and bombers to maintain deterrence. And they're not sitting ducks like the ICBMs. We can choose to stop playing this game of nuclear chicken and retire ICBMs altogether. We can choose to take the target off our back. To hear more about the hidden history of nuclear weapons, check out the At the Brink podcast, or go to atthebrink.org to find out what you can do to help us step back from the nuclear brink.